Have you ever looked at a picture and thought, well, I'm done with this one, let's move on to the next one? And then a few days later, you look at the same photo again and are thinking, maybe I'm not quite done here yet. Yeah. Well, you're not alone. And this is where the magic of working with different variations of the same photo comes in. Hi there, welcome back to Half-Light, where we break every possible photography rules. Let's talk about why maintaining different or even creating different variations of the same picture can really feed your creativity, your creative workflow, rather than hold you back in any possible way. Okay, let's talk about versions and virtual copies. In Lightroom and some other apps like ON1, I think even in Capture One, you have this concept of virtual copies, which is like super powerful. So let's talk about that right now. Okay. If you like the content of this video, then please hit the subscribe and like button. That way, anyone who is looking for this kind of content will find it a lot easier. Also, make sure you check out my other videos. Thank you so much for supporting my work. So here's an image. Let's focus on this one for now. This is an actual raw image, DNG, of DNG type, and this image actually occupies a space on my hard drive. So there is an actual file behind this. All right, so I'm going to right click and click on create virtual copy. So now there is a virtual copy of this image which looks perfectly identical. That is because they are perfectly identical. What if being done is a wrong goal, is a wrong attitude? So some might argue that working with variations is a sign of indecision. I disagree with that. I think working with variation is a sign of discovery, and discovery means exploration. And exploration in turn means experimentation. So when you have variations of a picture, you basically look at the same scene, the same frame through quite literally different lens. Amazing book. Oh wait, this isn't 10 items. Oh, whatever, next time. So what happened here is that the virtual copy is an exact clone of the source image, including every adjustment, rating, everything else that this source image had at the moment of creating the virtual copy had been cloned to the virtual copy. And the reason I know this is a virtual copy is because of this little curled corner here. And as you can see, I actually have two virtual copies because this is the one I created just a little bit earlier. And for all intents and purposes, these virtual copies are separate images in Lightroom. However, there is one major difference. As I mentioned, this is an actual image file which takes up space on my hard drive. These virtual copies, and again, I know that from this curled corners, these virtual copies do not take up any space on your hard drive where you store your images. These virtual copies only exist in the catalog, and they are basically referencing your source image, and on top of that storing any adjustments. And yes, each virtual copy can have its own adjustments, even its own ratings. As you can see, for example, let's change this to 3, let's change this to 2, and you can even have, this one has copy name copy 2, this one has copy name virtual copy 3, so completely different ones. So when I double click, this has copy name copy 2, I still see the original source file name. If I move on to the next one, it has its own copy name. So again, these copies, they have their own independent life, and they are stacked together, and this is very neat. They are stacked together by default, so you know that these images belong together. Another neat thing I want to mention is that you can create filters. If you go up here at the top filter bar, and you can create a filter. I already created one just for the demonstration. So here, if you go to attribute, you have these three icons at the end of this toolbar. They're barely noticeable, but they're very important. So the first one, if you hover, it says original photos. If I enable it, I will be only seeing photos that are the originals. So I won't be seeing any virtual copies. But look, if I click on the middle one, which says virtual copies, I will only see virtual copies. So this is a great way of getting access just to virtual copies in any of your folders. Okay, let's disable this. And then one last thing I want to mention is that just like the original image, you can actually export your virtual copies to TIFF file, JPEG file, and even a separate RAW file, DNG file, in which case you will actually create a physical file, and that will be an actual image. So let's try this. I'm going to go here. I already have some profiles, and I'm going to go with where is it? Okay, I'm going to go with the export to DNG same folder. I'm going to go here. Now it's telling me there is already a file with that name, which is the source file, but I'm going to say, okay, set a unique name. And look, these two are identical, but this is not a virtual copy, while this is a virtual copy. And this even has a numbered name. So this is now an actual file on my storage, which is an actual picture. They look the same, but physically they have different backgrounds, so to speak. So in my experience, a lot of times the first version of any picture is just a sketch. It feels like a draft. I kind of sense that there is something in that scene, in that frame, but I'm not quite sure what it is. And a lot of times that first version even does capture the essence of it, but it still kind of leaves me kind of half empty, in a sense that I know there is more to it. And then I go home and then I create another version of it where maybe I just amplify certain emotions, and then another version where I just, break some, break all the rules, and then maybe another one where I just go crazy with cropping. And suddenly I have this tree with all these branches of different versions, and many of them will, kind of die off because I will just discard them, but a select few will end up being very interesting and very valuable, and even they will have their own life as a separate picture. Because a lot of times, you can have a picture that looks great in color, it looks just as great or maybe even better as black and white. You can add some toning, you can apply different effects, you can have different cropping. So suddenly you have all these versions and combinations of these versions. And I think this is where your creativity really wakes up. Not because you want to get things done, but on the contrary, your creativity wakes up by letting go of that attitude, of the strategy of wanting to get things done. I know that a lot of people worry about working with different versions of a picture because can create a mess, like it's just too many pictures, too many variations, which one is which, why did I create this one? It can be overwhelming, and I know that from my own experience. But here's the thing. Ultimately, those great variants, they are usually not just one step away from your original source picture. You go through a number of steps and then you end up with a picture, a variation that you like. But those steps in between, those ones that you will probably discard, those were the ones where you learned something. In other words, a lot of times it's not the version that you end up printing or, selling is the really valuable one, but it was the one that taught you something. My challenge to you is to go and create variations. Push your pictures and let those pictures push back. Leave some comments. What do you think about these versions, working with versions? What is your experience with them? And you have some, interesting stories or maybe, lessons learned that you don't want to share with the rest of us. And I'm very, very grateful for your time spent with me. Thank you for being here. And now go ahead and push those pictures and create those countless variations. Thank you so much, and then see you next time. Bye.